Hello everyone and welcome to Midlife Crisis, the show where I talk about every major DC crossover event in chronological order. This week we are finally talking about Final Crisis. I'm going to be splitting up the event into two parts where we talk about the main event and its crucial tie-ins. This week we will be talking about Final Crisis issues 1 through 3, Superman Beyond, and Final Crisis Submit. Grant Morrison was tasked with writing Final Crisis, and they wanted this crisis to be the last one, which is why they called it that. It was intended to be the magnum opus for the New Gods, especially Darkseid. And because of this, Morrison didn't want anybody else to use the New Gods for a while so that their return would mean something. Unfortunately, the editorial at DC decided not to listen to them. Dan DiDio had other plans. He wanted a massive build-up to Final Crisis, which is how we got Countdown to Final Crisis, which is one of the worst comic books that DC has ever made. I've made a video all about it, so if you want to see that, you can check out those videos. And a different book spun out of that series called Death of the New Gods, which Morrison had not planned at all. So they were pretty mad when DC was throwing these characters around, creating this whole series about the New Gods dying. It kind of messed up Morrison's plans, and so they ended up ignoring it entirely. At the end of Countdown to Final Crisis, Darkseid and Orion battled one another, and Darkseid died. Morrison retcons this at the beginning of Final Crisis, explaining that Darkseid didn't actually die, he was left floating in the middle of space as a husk, he crash-landed into Earth, and inhabited the body of a mafia boss, becoming a human known as Mr. Darkseid. And since then, he's created this club called the Darkseid Club. And they had been kidnapping young metahumans in order to transform them into Darkseid's slaves. In another spin-off series called Seven Soldiers, Mr. Darkseid met up with Mr. Miracle and killed him, and then buried him. And then at the very end of the book, Mr. Miracle rose from his grave. Batman has been recently dealing with a group known as the Black Glove Society that leads directly into Final Crisis, so if you haven't seen my video about Batman RIP, I recommend checking it out before watching this, just so you can understand some events a little bit more later. And that's everything you really need to know, so let's just get straight into Final Crisis with issue 1, written by Grant Morrison, with art by J.G. Jones. The story begins in the Caveman era, where Metron, the All-Seer of the New Gods, who can travel through time and reality, meets with a caveman and bestows upon him the knowledge of fire. Meanwhile, the other cavemen are causing havoc and death, fighting one another. I like to believe that this one is Vandal Savage, because we know that he used to be a caveman. He gained powers as a caveman from a meteorite that made him immortal. So yeah, I like to imagine that this is Vandal. He's chopping his way through different cave people until he finds a woman inside of a tent. He grabs her by the hair and pulls her out of the tent and is ready to do horrible things to her. But that's when the caveman that met Metron shows up holding the flames he was given, and he sets the entire area on fire, scaring away the evil caveman. And we have a narration over this that says, "You ask me? Fire was our first big mistake. And this narration is being done by Dan Turpin, who is a detective that is investigating the disappearance of 6 children with metahuman powers. During his investigation, he comes across the unconscious body of Orion, who is in bad condition after his fight with Darkseid. He's dying, but before he dies, he's able to get a few last words out to Dan. He says, "Heaven, cracked and broken. You!" And he grabs Dan by the scruff of his neck. "Get your hands off of me. They did not die. He is in you all. Fight." And then Orion dies. This is Orion confirming to Dan that the new gods did not die during Death of the New Gods, and that they have inhabited the bodies of humans. And we see behind Dan, a little cheeky black racer floating in the sky. He is the Grim Reaper of the New Gods, and he is here to perceive the death of Orion. Meanwhile, John Stewart, the Green Lantern, receives an alert from the Guardians that he has never received before. Alert 1011. So he heads off to investigate it. And on his way, he passes Dan Turpin and arrives at Orion's dead body, while Dan leaves and meets with Renee Montoya, aka The Question. And she has some questions for Dan. She asks about the 6 missing children and whether or not they were metahumans. And she tells Dan if he's ever heard about the Darkseid Club, and hands him a pamphlet for the club. And before he can ask her anything else, she leaves. She's like, ugh, super muck-mucks. Seems like Dan's not really a fan of metahumans. Hal Jordan meets up with John Stewart and confirms that Alert 1011 is deicide, which means a god has been killed, and that god is Orion. So now they got to get to the bottom of this and find out who killed him. Hal Jordan gets in contact with the Guardians, and the Guardians tell him that they will be sending Alpha Lanterns to investigate the situation. These Alpha Lanterns used to be regular Green Lanterns, but were upgraded and have now become drones for the Guardians. Meanwhile, a group of Titans known as Empress, Sparks, and Maswymenos head to a garbage site to search for Metron's chair because of its otherworldly nature. And they're not the only ones trying to get this chair. A group of supervillains have also arrived in order to get the chair. Dr. Light and Mirror Master. They're working for a man named Libra, who wants the chair for his own nefarious deeds. So they come to the garbage site, they take down these Titans and receive the chair. Meanwhile, other supervillains are causing havoc in the middle of the city, and they are being dealt with by the Justice League. Probably as a distraction so that Dr. Light and Mirror Master can succeed in taking the chair. We then cut to the Secret Society of Supervillains, where Lex Luthor and Vandal Savage are not happy about Libra trying to take control of the group, but Libra says that he's not trying to take control of the group, he just wants to help them by giving them their greatest desire, as long as they help him with his plans. Libra's plan is to counteract the balance between good and evil and tip the scales, so that finally evil can triumph. He reveals that he has a spear which lights up with fire on the end, and also reveals that he has kidnapped Martian Manhunter, and he attacks Martian Manhunter with the spear because Manhunter is weak to fire, and he stabs the spear straight through him, causing him to howl in pain. It is assumed that his plan is to use Manhunter as bait for the rest of the Justice League, or as an example. Pretty messed up. One of the guys is even filming it on his phone, which is darkly funny. Dan Turpin meets the supervillain Tattooed Man. Tattooed Man leads him to the Darkseid Club, where he comes face to face with Mr. Darkseid himself. Darkseid reveals to Dan that the 6 children that went missing are under the control of Granny Goodness and have been influenced by the anti-life equation. He reveals the children to Dan and tells them to show him the power of the anti-life equation, and so they all attack Dan. The Justice League have a meeting about the death of Orion and decide to take action and find the ones responsible. And the Alpha Lanterns also begin investigating New Earth as well to find out who was responsible. Meanwhile, the Monitors, who oversee the entire universe, are having a meeting to deal with one of their members who was responsible for the loss of an entire Earth, Earth 51. He failed to save it in time, and now he is being isolated away from the Monitors. His name is Uotan, and another member of the Monitors, whose name is Weejadel, seems to care a lot about him and is really mad at this decision, and he screams to her, he's like, "I'll find a way back to you, Weejadel," before he gets teleported away. Weejadel leaves in frustration, meeting up with another Monitor who explains to her that they didn't originally have feelings or names, and that they believe they were contaminated during contact with the obscure life forms that grew within the workings of what they call the orrery, which is kind of like the life engine of the universe. She convinces Weejadel to save her love for the orrery and not for Uotan. At the same time, another Monitor secretly is planning something now that Uotan is out of his way. Using some self-made paint, the caveman from earlier draws a symbol on the ground around him, and then a flashing light happens, and he suddenly finds himself in the far apocalyptic future. The future where Kamandi, the last human on Earth, lives. And we see Kamandi find this caveman. Kamandi believes that this caveman has the weapon needed to take down the gods that was given by Metron. Like, we need it now! And then the caveman paints Metron's the patterns on his head. He paints them over his face, so it's presumed that maybe Metron has taken over the body of this caveman. And then the issue ends with Uotan waking up in a room as a regular human being, as the news plays on the TV talking about the horrific murder of John Johns, the Martian Manhunter, and how whoever was responsible will suffer. At a club in Japan, a man known as Sunny Sumo enjoys a drink when a supervillain known as Mega Yakuza, which is a dude in a giant robot suit, approaches him and challenges him to a fight. Sunny Sumo says that he doesn't want to fight, he can't be bothered. Mega Yakuza decides to attack him anyway. He's like, "I am Mega Yakuza, and if I want you to fight me, then you're gonna fight me." So he blasts Sunny Sumo with fire, and the fire doesn't faze Sunny at all. Sunny just finishes his drink while the fires are hitting his back, and then he quickly turns around, punches Mega Yakuza through the chest, rips his heart out, and leaves it in his empty glass, before heading off to the bathroom, telling everybody to clear out of the bathroom so he can wash himself up. The rest of the kids in the bar, who are all superheroes, idolize Sunny Sumo, and they tell one of their friends to go get his autograph. Sunny tells the kid to scram because he's not ready to give anybody autographs at the moment, and that's when a character known as Shiloh Norman shows up. Shiloh Norman was the apprentice of the original Mr. Miracle, and he is also Mr. Miracle. He's the second one. He found Sunny with the help of a mother box, and he wants Sunny's help in the coming cosmic war against the New Gods. We get to see a little bit more of Uoten living his life as a human now, where he lives at Big Belly Burger, and he's trying to find a way to get back to his people, the other monitors. He has memories of all these different realities, and he's jotting them down on some paper. We get to see Russian Superman and Russian Supergirl, as well as a little cameo from a character who looks suspiciously like Dr. Manhattan, which is supposed to be a Watchmen reference. I don't think it's supposed to be anything more than that. This is before DC really started digging heavily into Watchmen lore. Meanwhile, Dan Turpin tortures the Mad Hatter, because he's still searching for those kids. He's just beating the shit out of Mad Hatter, asking him all these questions about where the kids are, to the point where the bathroom is just full of blood. There's blood all over the walls. Mad Hatter is just on the ground, and he has enough strength to murmur the words blood. And obviously he means Bloodhaven, so Dan Turpin orders a ticket to Bloodhaven, and he talks about the fact that he's been acting a little bit differently. He's been feeling a little bit differently than usual. He's never been consumed with this much rage before. The Justice League holds a funeral for Martian Manhunter, swearing to get revenge for him, while Libra and the Society of Supervillains have another meeting. Lex Luthor is still not convinced by Libra. The only way that's going to convince him is if Libra somehow hurts Superman. Lex is already trying to gather supervillains to turn against Libra. He wants to get Vandal on his side, but Vandal Savage is on Libra's side. Because if Libra can get him what he wants, which for him is an end to the boredom of being immortal, then he'll follow Libra to the end of the earth. After the death of Martian Manhunter, this guy named the Human Flame was put on the map again as a supervillain. Everybody knows his name now, and he's thankful to Libra for it. And Libra takes him away to have a conversation, because he's like, now that I've given you what you want, I need to talk to you about what you owe me. The Justice League continue to investigate Orion's body, and that's when Hal Jordan, Wally West, and the Alpha Lantern Kraken arrive, and Kraken begins investigating Orion's body because she knows a lot more about how these gods work, and she says they gotta do it quickly because Orion's body is made out of energy, and eventually it will disperse and become one with the source. So they gotta figure out what killed him before that happens. As per usual, Batman does not trust Kraken at all. And Hal Jordan has to convince him that she's worth trusting. John Stewart is still investigating the site where Orion died, and that's where another lantern named Opto arrives to check in on him. John excavates what looks like a bullet out of the ground from where Orion died, but he says that it can't be possible that this bullet killed Orion because its energies are from 50 million years ago. That's when John Stewart is suddenly attacked by another Green Lantern. We don't get to see this Green Lantern's face, but it's somebody that John knows. He breaks out of his constraints and punches the hand of this lantern, and then the Alpha Lanterns all bust into Hal Jordan's house and arrest Hal Jordan because apparently he was the one that attacked John Stewart and tried to kill him. And they've shut down Hal's ring, so he can't do anything. Superman leaves, heading off to the Daily Planet, so that they don't suspect his secret identity. So Batman stays behind with Kraken to talk to her about Orion, and he realizes that something's up with Kraken. He's like, hey, are you okay? And Kraken's like, help me, she's eating my mind alive. Tell them our weapons don't work. And Batman sees her hand and sees that there's something wrong with it. It's like that imprint on your palm. And he grabs her hand. He's like, don't you dare touch me. And this is when Batman realizes that the person who attacked and tried to kill John Stewart was Kraken, and that they framed Hal Jordan. Because this isn't actually the Alpha Lantern Kraken. this is actually Granny Goodness, who has infected Kraken's mind and taken over her body. So she attacks Batman, knocking him out, and then opens up a boom tube to bring him to wherever Granny Goodness came from. Dan Turpin runs through the ruins of Bloodhaven until he runs into Reverend Good, who is Glorious Godfrey in disguise. Good brings Dan to an underground base and reveals to Dan that the reason why they've kidnapped all these metahuman kids is because they are using them as vessels for the new gods. He reveals to Dan that he already found the kids back in New York. The reason he doesn't remember is because Darkseid is in his mind, and Darkseid is taking over his body, so eventually Dan Turpin will become Darkseid. Dan sees Batman there, who has been kidnapped and placed in this weird vessel. Batman shouts at him, saying that they're coming to get us all! Warn the Justice League! And then a weird helmet gets put onto his head. It's like, warn everyone! At the Daily Planet, Lois Lane hands Jimmy Olsen everything about the missing kids, the entire story, and tells him to run it downstairs. And Clark realizes that he just saw Jimmy downstairs, so this can't be Jimmy. And it's because it's not Jimmy. It's Clayface in disguise. It's like, I thought I just saw Jimmy downstairs. And then all of a sudden, the Daily Planet just blows up. And Clark sees Lois's arm underneath the rubble. He's like, no, Lois! So this is what Libra meant when he promised Lex that he was going to hurt Superman. Wally West and Jay Garrick head to the building where the Secret Society have been having their meetings, and Wally reveals to Jay that what if Orion was killed by a bullet that was sent through time 50 million years ago? It was shot through time and then through Orion and then buries itself in the concrete in time. Like, maybe this is where the bullet gets shot through time. Where they are right now is where the bullet gets shot through time, through Orion, and then into the ground 50 million years ago, which explains why the bullet is 50 million years old. I know it sounds confusing. That's as best as I can explain it. Suddenly, Metron's chair begins glowing and vibrating, and Jay recognizes the vibrations. It's like, no, this isn't possible. It can't be. And they see Barry Allen running out of this light, chasing after the bullet that is going to kill Orion. And he's like, run! And he is being chased by the Black Racer. Pretty crazy way to end this issue. The organization known as SHADE and one of their agents, Frankenstein, who all work for somebody known as Father Time, enter the Darkseid Club, where they find Renee Montoya, who is investigating the mysterious disappearance of Dan Turpin. We know that he's been possessed by Darkseid. They find the original body that was possessed by Darkseid, and that body has become a decrepit mummy. Frankenstein orders the Question to freeze, but Renee manages to get away, and so he stays behind and continues to investigate the corpse. They then later report to Father Time, who orders Shade to go to Bloodhaven and continue their investigation there so that they can find the hidden base where they are experimenting on people. As Renee Montoya runs through the city, a character known as Overgirl, who is a Nazi version of Supergirl, crashes into the middle of the city. She's covered in burns and all sorts of stuff. This is the same Overgirl that Uwotan was drawing in his journal earlier. I mistook that for Russian Superman and Russian Supergirl. It was actually Nazi Superman and Nazi Supergirl. Sorry, I got my alternate evil Supermen mixed up. They have very similar costumes. And speaking of Awotan, he gets fired from his job at the burger joint because he keeps talking to people about the universe and different Earths. And his boss is like, just stop talking about that crap and flip burgers. I don't want you working there anymore. And after he gets fired, we learn that Awotan is being followed by another monitor. Meanwhile, Jay Garrick returns home, where he reunites with Wally's family and Iris West, and explains to them what happened when he and Wally came face to face with Barry Allen. Barry showed up and was like, run! So they ran into the time vortex that Barry was in. Turns out Barry was trying to stop the bullet from killing Orion. So he had him, Jay, and Wally all run after the bullet to try and stop it, but they failed at stopping the bullet. The bullet hit Orion, and then Jay was thrown out of the time vortex, and Wally and Barry disappeared. So we don't know where they are at the moment. We just know that Jay is back in the present and he has no idea what happened to them. All he knows is that Barry Allen is alive. Libra meets with Human Flame and forces the Human Flame to wear one of these apocalyptic helmets that will control his mind. He doesn't tell him that this is going to happen. He just forces him to put it on. And so the Human Flame falls under apocalyptic control, and then Lex shows up and is like, hey Libra, you said you were gonna hurt Superman. I haven't heard from him in ages, which means you must have succeeded. The problem is, because you were able to do that, I see you as more of a threat. So I'm still gonna try and take you down with my own guys. And Libra's like, well, if you look at your friend Human Flame here, he's got this helmet on. That means he's now controlled by Apocalypse. So if you don't follow us, become a part of Darkseid's forces, we'll force one of these helmets on you, and you'll be a mindless drone as well. So he kind of gives Lex an ultimatum. Join Darkseid and give in to being a criminal for him, or become a mindless drone. Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen spend their time at the hospital looking over Lois, who is in critical condition right now. One of the other people that works at Daily Planet is dead. Somebody lost their leg. Perry is not in great condition right now. It's also retcon that Jimmy Olsen doesn't know that Clark is Superman, because Morrison just acts like he doesn't know, even though in Countdown he revealed to Superman, he revealed to Clark that he knows he's Superman. We just ignore that. Jimmy leaves in order to go find Superman, while Clark stays to watch over Lois, saying that he would literally do anything to save her life. And that's when one of the monitors shows up and tells him that she can help him save Lois, and that he will have to come with her. Hal Jordan is taken away for the attempted murder of Jon Stewart. Nobody knows that it was actually Kraken who did it. Nobody knows that she's actually Granny Goodness in disguise. Only Batman knew, and he's been kidnapped. But Diana is very suspicious. She doesn't believe that Hal Jordan did it. She believes that Darkseid is somehow behind this, because it's just way too suspicious of a situation that Orion died and then Hal Jordan got done for murder. Also, Hal can't defend himself because he just happens to not remember where he was the night that Jon Stewart was attacked. Alan Scott, Green Lantern, comes up with an idea to draft heroes so that they can create an army to fight against Darkseid's forces or whatever's coming. So they send out a call to everybody. A bunch of the superheroes all hear the call, like Freddy, Aquaman, Supergirl, Black Canary, Green Arrow, and we get to see everybody unite together in a massive group. All the heroes that they could contact. Meanwhile, Sonny Sumo and Shiloh Norman get to know each other a little bit better, and this is where it's revealed that this isn't the Shiloh Norman that we normally know. This is Shiloh Norman with the original Mr. Miracle, his soul, in his body. So when Mr. Miracle died, his soul came out of the grave and possessed Shiloh Norman's body. As they are about to get into a private jet, it is attacked by Darkseid's forces, and that's when the superhero kids from the bar that Sunny Sumo was at arrive in order to help Shiloh and Sunny get away. So they all get into their supercar, and then the car flies off into the air, escaping from Darkseid's forces. Wonder Woman and the Atomic Knights arrive at the outskirts of Bloodhaven. They plan on going into Bloodhaven so that they can try and find the hidden base where all of the people being experimented on are and put a stop to it. But when they go down there, like, they find a bunch of dead bodies, and then they find the one responsible for the dead bodies, which is Mary Marvel. During Countdown, she fell under Darkseid's control and became evil, and in this, she's still under Darkseid's control, and she's even worse, and she looks awful. Her costume is horrendous. She's mostly shaved on her head, except she now has just two disgusting looking piggy tails coming out of her head that are colored pink. She attacks Wonder Woman, and an Atomic Knight named Marine gets in the way, and then Mary Marvel just flies straight through her, cutting her in half, and also cutting the head off of the dog that she's riding on, because these are Dalmatian dogs that have been mutated. Yeah, Mary brutally kills both of them, which is horrible. They manage to take Mary down, but Diana tells them not to kill her because it's not her fault. She's under Darkseid's control. She is not a killer. And that's when Mary reveals that they lured Diana here on purpose because she is going to be the carrier for the anti-life equation virus, because their plan is to infect everybody with the anti-life equation so that they fall under their control, and Wonder Woman is the carrier. So she gets infected, and then the anti-life equation virus is sent via email, because it can be transferred over the internet. So it's sent via email, and people are opening up their emails, or the emails are opening up automatically. And then we reunite with Barry and Wally, where it's revealed that they were sent weeks into the future. And they arrive in the future, and when they arrive there, Barry is like, "Why did I come back? What happened to this place while I was gone?" And then we see Wonder Woman and a couple of other characters like Batwoman, Catwoman, Giganta, all under the control of the anti-life equation. Superheroes, kill. With Final Crisis issue 3 over, we now move on to Superman Beyond to see what's going on with Superman. This is written by Grant Morrison with art by Doug Mank. Superman Beyond is incredibly confusing. It's very otherworldly, very Grant Morrison-y, but I think I've figured out how to explain it the best that I possibly can without it sounding too confusing. I'm gonna have to dumb it down a little bit. Otherwise, our heads are all just gonna be hurting. Superman is recruited by this monitor who promises that if he helps her, she will give him the cure that will save Lois. And that she's been recruiting a bunch of characters from throughout the multiverse in order to help her. She reveals to Superman that she has a multiversal ship for them to travel in, so they head into the ship and they enter the multiverse itself, where Superman sees that the other people she's recruited are the German Nazi Superman, Captain Marvel, a version of Captain Atom that looks a lot like Dr. Manhattan, but isn't Dr. Manhattan. But he can't see what they are fighting because Superman has normal vision. So he has to unlock this new ability called 4D vision that allows him to see through reality. So he turns on his 4D vision, he sees the multiverse itself, he sees Ultraman fighting a giant creature, because Ultraman is here, he's part of the team, he's fighting some giant creature. This is the thing that is attacking the multiverse and feeding on it. This is the thing that they need to try and stop. Superman joins in the fight, he flies up to this thing and grabs it, trying to push it away or throw it. Ultraman ends up helping him. Together with their combined strength, Superman and Ultraman are able to throw this giant creature onto Earth 51, where there is nobody that it can hurt. So that should keep it busy for a while so that they can figure out a way to stop it, or figure out what it is. The multiversal ship is then sucked into a vortex where our characters end up in Limbo, where all of the forgotten characters go. This place was introduced in Morrison's Animal Man series. It did not age well back then because one of the characters that appeared in Limbo was Mr. Freeze, and then Batman the Animated Series happened and Mr. Freeze became one of Batman's most popular villains. This time I think Morrison learned from their mistakes and made sure all the characters in Limbo were characters that would never be brought back or never be relevant again. Sadly, the ship is now broken after crash landing into Limbo, so they've got to figure out a way to fix it. But how do you fix a multiversal ship? Well, there is a library in Limbo. Superman's like, maybe there's a book in the library that we can use. But one of the characters that they meet, whose name is Merriman, says that there are no books in the library because there's no stories in Limbo. However, he's wrong, because when they go into the library, there is one book. Only one book, and it's every single book in existence in one book. So Superman assumes if they take that book and give it to Captain Atom is the only person with the power to read a book like that, and he'd be able to find a repair manual for the multiversal ship. So he and Captain Marvel try to grab the book and move it, but because it's all the books in existence, that's really hard to do. And while they're trying to grab this book, we get to see the origins of the monitors, and it is revealed what this creature is, the one that's attacking the multiverse. It is a creature known as Mandrak, and it is the evil monitor. That is what it's known as. It's not the anti-monitor, it is an evil monitor that was locked away by the monitors, but would one day escape and cause havoc throughout the multiverse, and that's what's happening right now. Superman and Captain Marvel fail to grab the book. They get sent flying, and Captain Marvel loses his memories and forgets who he is, so he transforms back into Billy Batson, because the longer you stay in Limbo, the more memories you lose. So they take Billy back to the ship so that he can recuperate, and while they are there, it is revealed that the monitor that recruited them all was lying to them, kinda. Basically, in return for helping her, she will take their life essence. At this point, she's basically given up. She wasn't going to tell them what Mandrak was, but now that Superman has already figured out who Mandrak is, it's too late. Mandrak shows up again, and Ultraman has sided with Mandrak, it seems. Mandrak begins attacking the multiverse again. And it turns out Ultraman has succeeded in grabbing the book. The Book of Books. That's what I'm gonna call it. The Infinite Book. I have the proof here in this book. Evil triumphs, Superman, and there's nothing you can do about it. Evil wins in the end. So now Ultraman is working for Mandrak because he has read the Infinite Book and has seen the ending, which the ending is evil wins, Mandrak wins, and so he's decided that he's going to side with Mandrak. But Limbo, the residents of Limbo, don't want to be destroyed, and so they decide to fight back against Mandrak. Meanwhile, it's revealed that while the Monitor did betray her team in a way, she did it for the right reasons. She's not a vampire trying to suck out their blood and kill them. She's a vampire trying to suck out their blood and use it to repair the ship. Just for some reason, she didn't tell Nazi Superman that that's what she was doing with his blood. She took a little bit of his blood to put it in her blood because she powers the ship with her own blood. It's so weird. She has these cables in her chest that draw her blood out and repair the ship, and she needed his blood to repair it. She could have just gone up to him and said, "Hey, this is why I need your blood. Will you be willing to give me some of it?" I'm sure he would have been like, "Yeah, of course. If it's to repair the ship, then here you go." Instead of just taking it without asking, making everybody think that she's a murderer. Billy Batson convinces Nazi Superman not to kill her, and she reminds Billy of his trigger word to turn into Captain Marvel. Ultraman comes face to face with Superman and wants to beat the crap out of him, but Captain Marvel shows up just in time to stop the two of them from fighting, and then Captain Atom multiplies himself to try and keep Mandrak at bay, Mandrak's forces at bay. And then, what he does is he grabs Ultraman and Superman and is like, because you're the ultimate evil and you're the ultimate good, we need to combine the two of you in order to save the universe. So he combines them together to create the ultimate purity essence. The reason he does this is because many years ago, the Monitors built a giant robotic Superman to protect the multiverse and fight Mandrak. I am not kidding. It is literally a giant multiversal robotic Superman. He sends the essence of Ultraman and Superman into this giant robot so that they can take control of it and face Mandrak. So inside the robotic Superman, they walk through the world of the Monitors. The Monitors are all in awe at this giant robotic Superman who's going to save them. And Mandrak finally shows himself in his true form. We see Mandrak. He is holding the vial that Superman can use to cure Lois, and he goads Superman on to take it from him. So Superman fights Mandrak. They have a massive blowout, destruction and all that, shooting beams, lasers, electricity at each other, and one of the Monitors, Zelo Vala, who is one of Mandrak's greatest followers, tries to talk him down or talk to Mandrak, and Mandrak is like, "Silence!" and kills her, and then realizes who he's killed, and he blames Superman, saying that it's his fault, and then their fight continues. Superman is determined to stop Mandrak from attacking the multiverse, so he pushes Mandrak to the edge of a cliff and shoots his heat vision straight through Mandrak, seemingly killing him and dropping Mandrak to his death. Superman is then given the vial to cure Lois from the Monitors, and then Ultraman and Superman leave the robotic Superman's body and are sent back to Limbo, where they come face to face with what remains of Mandrak's forces. They team up with Captain Marvel and Nazi Superman, and they all attack Mandrak's forces, destroying them all. And they think Mandrak is dead, but it turns out he's not dead. Ultraman crash lands in a different part of Limbo, where Mandrak approaches him and turns him into his vampire slave. So Ultraman is now a vampire, and he works for Mandrak, and Mandrak swears that when he sees Superman next, they're gonna have another confrontation. Something's gonna happen. They're gonna fight each other or something. And he's gonna bring armies of millions with him. And with Mandrak's first attempt at destroying the multiverse thwarted, Superman is free to head back to Earth, where he gives Lois the cure, saving her life. She wakes up, she's all nice and healthy. Clark, there was this taste, like the best champagne. Ice cream. Oh, I need a pen. I need a pen to write all this down before I forget. And close the door, Clark. Do I have a story to tell? Can't wait to hear it, Lois. Can't wait to hear it. So it's like she doesn't actually know what Clark went through in order to save her life. He's just happy that she's alive. And that's it. That's the end of Superman Beyond. And now we move on to the final comic that we are going to be covering today, which is Final Crisis Submit, written by Grant Morrison with art by Matthew Clark. The wife and daughter of the villain Tattooed Man are held up inside of a school, and despite warnings from him, the mother decides to send out a distress call for help, even though her daughter is like, no, Dad said not to do that. Meanwhile, Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning, is being chased by anti-life matter-controlled dogs, and while he is trying to escape from these dogs, we see Tattooed Man and his son held up in a nearby store, trying to avoid these anti-life equation infected creatures, and they see Black Lightning being attacked by Darkseid's forces and decide that they need to help him, because even though he is a superhero, underneath the mask, he's like them. Black Lightning is at the mercy of Darkseid's forces. They're ready to shoot him and transform him into one of them, but that's when Tattooed Man shows up with his son and saves Black Lightning, and the three of them head back to where Tattooed Man's wife and daughter are. There's a little bit of tension at first because Black Lightning assumes that they can't read books for some reason. I guess because he's a teacher and he assumes that all supervillains can't read books and that they all burn books like Hitler did, because that's what he assumes that they're doing. He's like, Darkseid forces are the only ones that should be burning books. And Tattooed Man's like, wait, you're just thinking that we don't read? And so Black Lightning apologizes and says that he's right, that he shouldn't judge them like that, but that they need to get out of there, because otherwise Darkseid's forces are gonna come and they're gonna be in big trouble. So they decide to head into a school bus, and this is when a bunch of the anti-life equation soldiers arrive. They get into the school bus and they drive straight out of the school. It's pretty cool seeing Black Lightning and Tattooed Man team up with each other, driving in a school bus with Tattooed Man's family, driving through anti-life equation dogs and soldiers, and there's a bit of relation between the two of them because they both have families. Black Lightning has two daughters who are superheroes, and Tattooed Man has his family as well, who aren't supervillains. Eventually, some cops show up and start chasing them, and that's where Jefferson shows off his electric powers, uses it to blast all of these cop cars. These aren't actual cops, innocent cops. These are cops that are under the influence of the anti-life equation. I guess he's still killing innocent people, but at this point he's just kind of like, well, I don't really have much of a choice. It's either them or us. They find a nearby underpass and decide to take refuge in there, but they get barricaded by the anti-life equation soldiers who enter the underpass as well, and there are shade soldiers there too. So Jefferson tells Tattooed Man and his family to go over to the shade soldiers because they'll look after them, while he stays behind and deals with the anti-life equation soldiers so that they can get away. But Tattooed Man refuses to listen to him because he's so hard-headed, and Jefferson's like, look at me, man, this isn't just about this city, this is about the entire world and reality itself. You guys gotta go, and dude, you gotta make the right choice at this point. Are you gonna be a villain, or are you gonna be a hero? Tattooed Man's son actually thinks that Jefferson is gonna attack his father or something, so he shoots him, which is kind of sad. Just shoots Jefferson. Jefferson sacrifices himself. He gets captured by the Apocalyptan forces, and the anti-life equation takes control of him, and he becomes one of their soldiers, while Tattooed Man and his family get away. And they recount what happened to the Shade agents. They tell them what happened to Black Lightning, and that's when everybody kind of realizes that maybe Tattooed Man was never a supervillain. Maybe he was a superhero the entire time. And that's not true. He was a supervillain. He was definitely a supervillain before this. I don't know what Morrison was on about with this whole revelation at the end. He was a supervillain before this happened. He did bad things in the Green Lantern comic book. But that doesn't change the fact that he's choosing to be a hero now. And then the book ends with Anti-Life Equation Black Lightning burning books. Because earlier on in the book, Jefferson was talking about how burning books is wrong, but now that he's being controlled by the Anti-Life Equation, he thinks the books are stupid, and he starts burning them, which is, a nice parallel. Life is a question. Anti-life is the answer. And that's it. That's the end of Final Crisis Submit, and that's the end of the first part of Final Crisis. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. So far, I am enjoying Final Crisis. It's just very confusing at times, kind of hard to wrap your head around. One of those books that I think I'll have to read again later, just to understand it even further. I'm looking forward to seeing where things go from here, and if you want to see where things go from here, then you're going to have to tune in next week for Final Crisis Part 2, where we finish off the event and the last couple of tie-ins. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.